Safe to say, The Flash has had a very interesting journey to the big screen, with all the director changes, all the writer changes, all the BS with Ezra Miller. The film was announced nearly 10 years ago, and it's finally out in cinemas. And it's definitely a film. The opening sequence of the film shows the Flash rescuing a bunch of CGI babies from a collapsing building. Yeah, you heard that right. Babies, as in Gaga Goo Goo babies. And they're CGI. Yeah, Flash is using the Speed Force slow-mo thing to jump through the air and rescue each baby one by one. He puts one baby in a microwave as it's falling, and I was sitting there with the biggest question mark expression on my face, questioning what the hell I was watching. And little did I know that this opening sequence would perfectly set up the type of experience I was about to have. Because they constantly go for that awkward, quirky humour, especially with the second Barry Allen in the alternate timeline. And I would say about 85% of the jokes in this film completely fell flat for me, and honestly got quite annoying after a while, especially the second Barry Allen. And I get it, he's experiencing all the Flash stuff for the first time, he's very excited about it all, but there's just some specific jokes and attempts at humour and physical comedy that they attempt with the second Barry Allen that just got on my nerves. There are some scenes where the characters just do not stop trying to land jokes and quirks and awkward little interactions with other characters, and it just made me roll my eyes. And the visual effects. The CGI in The Flash is some of the worst I've ever seen in a big budget superhero tentpole franchise film in a very long time. One or two visual effects shots looked okay, but the rest of it, I mean, I'd say mediocre is an understatement. This was truly atrocious CGI. The last act of this film is basically a big Man of Steel recreation, and you go back and look at Man of Steel 10 years ago, the CGI in that film is like 100 times better. Why has CGI gotten worse in films, for the most part? It's just a weird thing that I've noticed in a lot of big franchise films since like 2017-18, where some of them, not all of them, but some of them just have really mediocre visual effects compared to films from like the mid-2000s or the early 2010s. And not only is The Flash the latest victim of this weird trend, it is by far the biggest offender. So to put it lightly, The Flash is very rough around the edges, but there is some positive in here. The central characterization of Barry Allen and his motivation for wanting to go back in time to rescue his mother, that provides a solid emotional center to the film, because it's always kind of subconsciously in your mind, like that's the whole reason why all this has happened. And later on, when they start fighting Zod and the Kryptonians, you see it in the trailer where Batman says, "Why do you want to save this universe?" And Barry says, "Because it's the one where my mum lives." And that whole thing provides the film with a decent emotional undercurrent to all the stuff that's happening. And you get to the end of the film, no spoilers, and there are a couple of scenes where it was actually genuinely touching and some good, effective emotional beats. And that emotional center just about held this film together for me, and it just about pushed the film over the line to being a positive for me. Now, as far as the fan service goes, there is quite a bit of it in here, and it's... let's be honest, Michael Keaton's Batman is in this film purely to have Michael Keaton return as Batman in a new film in 2023, because multiverse is popping off in the pop culture. Was it cool to see him in the film as Batman again? Yeah, absolutely, of course it was. But does he serve a true emotional narrative purpose to the proceedings? Not really. The finale of this film is where it all goes down. The two Flashes, Batman and Supergirl, come together to make a scuffed Justice League to fight General Zod and the Kryptonians. And it is a whirlwind of CGI. I don't think there was a single live action shot in this entire climax. And whilst I was watching it, I remembered a headline I read a couple of days ago with Michael Shannon throwing shade at multiverse films being filmmakers just kind of playing with action figures on screen. And that's exactly what this climax felt like. They just chucked in a whole bunch of action figures, a couple of Flashes, a Keaton Batman, a random Supergirl, a Zod, and just bashing them all together and just making lots of noises. Speaking of Michael Shannon, General Zod, 5 minutes of screen time and about 3 lines of dialogue. Again, he was another fan service inclusion because people loved him in Man of Steel. And Supergirl, I forgot to talk about Supergirl, and that's kind of the point I wanted to make. Supergirl just didn't really leave an impression on me. I didn't feel like she was in the film that long, to be honest. No spoilers, but this film has one of the greatest cameos I have ever seen, at least in a superhero franchise film. When this guy shows up, me and my brothers audibly were like... It was pretty great. So in conclusion, The Flash was a pretty interesting experience overall. It's one of those films where you gotta take the rough with the smooth, and there's a lot of rough, like I said, with the humour, the CGI, the so-so fan service. But when you really boil it down and look at it, there is a solid human story at the centre of this. It's just smothered in a cavalcade of crap.